welcome to Civic Affairs. I'm Andy Martins. We're glad you're with us again on this special edition of Civic Affairs. It's a real thrill for me to welcome the MPP from Nickel Belt from her office in Sudbury, Francine Gelina. Madame Gelina, thanks very much for taking time to do this interview with me today.
My pleasure, Andy.
Just as a starter, let's get into your background. You were elected MPP October 10th, 2007. For the viewers, what were you doing before politics?
Well, the first 25 years of my career, I was a healthcare provider. I worked in the hospital for about 12 and a half years, and then I was the executive director of the Community Health Center in Sudbury for about another 12 and a half years. So 25 years in healthcare and 12 years in politics.
That's wonderful. It's no wonder you're the healthcare critic for the NDP. You know something about healthcare. Let's get right into it with the first question. With the first question, and Sault Ste. Marie are wondering with the opioid problem. Sault Ste. Marie is not getting the level 3 facility for Sault area hospitals. And we're wondering if you can take this question to Queen's Park and ask the Minister of Health or the Premier what is the holdup? Can Sault Ste. Marie expect the withdrawal facility?
I would say Sault Ste. Marie is in line with many other communities where the resources available to fight the opioid crisis does not meet up with demand. I mean, I would say I would put Sault Ste. Marie right up there where the tools to help people win these battles are not available to you, are not available to the people in your community. And certainly a level 3 facility is part of what is missing. I'm more than happy to bring that forward to the Minister of Health, to the Premier, but I don't give people false hope. Although the government speak a good game about $3.8 billion coming for mental health and addiction, very little of it is trickling out. So there's very few new programs being funded, very few resources being made available, but certainly Sault Ste. Marie is in need, and I will be more than happy to bring that forward.
I appreciate it. There is some concern that with all the Northern Ontario reorganization in healthcare that perhaps the level 3 withdrawal facility may get lost in the shuffle.
I hope you are wrong, but I wouldn't blame people for being worried about this because we in Northern Ontario don't seem to be a big priority for this government. And mental health and addiction, as I said, although the federal government promised $1.9 billion, the provincial governments say they will match it, but it's over 10 years. And it seems to be that in the first 3-4 years, there's not going to be a whole lot, although the need is very pressing and the need is very real right now.
You've seen the healthcare of Ontario. It seems like we're really in a logjam with these reconfigurations and these changes that the government's trying to pull. It's not going to look very pretty in 2022 when the election year is happening again.
Well, so they've made two major changes. The first one is they are rolling up 20 different agencies into one.
Right.
So the 14 LHINs won't exist. Cancer Care Ontario won't exist. Trillium Gift of Life won't exist. Ontario Quality, none of this will exist anymore. It's all being rolled into Ontario Health.
Right.
At the same time, they are creating those humongous, what they call teams, Ontario teams, but they're not a team. There is no way a team of provider can look after 200 and 300,000 people. That doesn't make any sense, but that's what they're calling them. And that opens the door to privatizations and not to.
Right. Do you see them holding on to Cancer Care Ontario, or there is some hope to at least hold on to that?
No, Cancer Care Ontario is already gone. They have been given their marching orders. So has the 14 LHINs. The 14 LHINs don't have board of directors anymore. They've all been thanked and kicked to the curb, and so has Cancer Care Ontario.
That's a done deal then, yeah. What about the public health units in Northern Ontario?
That's another very worrisome change. So we have 10 health units right now serving Northern Ontario. They basically focus on very different population, and they're going to be rolled into two. One for all of the Northwest and one from all of the Northeast, starting in Parry Sound all the way to the West Bay, James Bay coast. So humongous territories,
right,
with in the Northeast over 660,000 people living really, really different lives and very different needs for public health. For us, for Northern Ontario, those changes, there is no body of evidence that supports that having those geographically massive health unit is going
right,
to improve the health of Northerners, much to the opposite.
So if I understand this correctly, then the LHIN that is in Sault Ste. Marie and the public health unit that is in Sault Ste. Marie, the chances of both of those being saved are probably non-existent at this point.
As I said, I don't give people false hope. Right now, they are forging ahead with going from 35 health units down to 10. Right. And for Northern Ontario, it means one for all of the Northeast. So whether you're in Sault Ste. Marie, in Timmins, in Sudbury, in North Bay, in Parry Sound, all of those disappear, and one great big ones will appear. I'm not ready to say this. Sudbury elected New Democrats, and the Ford government doesn't look kindly on regions that don't elect their own kind. So for all we know, they could very well put this in North Bay right. Or in Sault Ste. Marie for all of the Northeast. It's not a given that it will be in Sudbury.
It's not sure.
No, all we know is the geographical area that they will cover will be right. humongous, and we'll start in Parry Sound and go all the way to James Bay Coast and all the way to the Northeast, and then the Northwest will start.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with MPP Franz Gelina from Nickel Belt, which is part of Sudbury. We'll be right back after these messages. Okay. Welcome back to Civic Affairs. I'm Andy Martins. Extremely thrilled to have the MPP of Nickel Belt, Franz Gelina. She's been a member in Queen's Park and in Sudbury for 12 years. Thank you so much for coming back, Madame Gelina, for another segment. Northern Ontario Travel Grant. The more I talk to people in Sault Ste. Marie, and I'm sure you've heard this in your riding of Nickel Belt, people aren't very happy with the way the government is running the Northern Ontario Travel Grant. It's not efficient. It could be better run than it has been.
Oh, I agree with everything you've just said. I mean, Nickel Belt is one of those big northern ridings. So I go south to the French River, north to Ivanhoe Lake, Folliette, about 450 kilometers south right. to north, 300 east to west, one of those big northern ridings. So a lot of the people I serve, whether they live in Gogama or Biscoe-Tacing or Westry or Folliette, depends on the Northern Health Travel Grant. If you use it once in a lifetime, it's not too bad. It will reimburse you part of your mileage, and it will pay for part of your hotel if you have to stay overnight. But if you're somebody who's on dialysis or somebody who uses it on a regular basis, it is so slow and so cumbersome that it doesn't take long, that you are far in debt and not receiving any help.
Exactly. I know my son has had chronic health issues, and we've been able to find the money, but people, you know, the Northern Ontario Travel Grant, which is done out of Sudbury, and they take weeks and weeks to get the money back to the people. And if the doctors, if the forms get tied up in the doctor's offices, then it can take even longer than that.
Yes, yes. And if one line is not signed properly or whatever, they send the whole thing back to you. You don't know what's wrong. Could it be improved? Yes, absolutely. This is 2019. Why isn't all of this not done online? Why isn't all of this not done automatically? You are in the specialist office in Southern Ontario or anywhere else. Let them send the message in and done. But no, you still have the paper, you still have to mail it, you still have original signature. We could do a whole lot better if they wanted to make this better.
To be fair, this is not a Doug Ford problem. This was a problem when Kathleen Wynne was Premier. It hasn't really changed.
They had very little interest in making things better for Northern Ontario, and Mr. Ford has taken things from bad to worse.
Right. The patient-based healthcare system, is this really going to a reality? The government wants to change into a patient-based healthcare system. You've been in healthcare for a very long time. Can you shed some light for our viewers that is this ever going to be a reality?
I don't know if it will ever be a reality, but it is something good. So patient center means that I can give you the example of Espanola. Espanola, when you leave Sault Ste. Marie, you go east towards Sudbury, you'll get to a little town of Espanola.
Right.
Espanola Hospital also have their long-term care on site. They have a family health team, so family physicians who works out of there. They have a clinic for mental health. They run some home care services, and they have a few hospice services as well. So if you go there, you meet your family physicians, or you're in the long-term care home, you take 6, the family physician will go see you. So this is patient-centered care, and it is a team of willing partners who came together to provide better care. But you do this on a scale of about 5,000 people. Those are the people who live in Espanola. What the government has put forward are teams for 280 to 300,000 people. Well, that's not a team. That's a administrative structure, but it is not a team. For Northern Ontario, that would mean like half of the North would be in one team. Well, there's no way a physician in Sault Ste. Marie can, provide care to somebody who lives in Gogama. Like, the distance are way too big, and the number of people, it doesn't work. So the concept of patient-based care, absolutely. Where the different providers work together to give you good care, absolutely. What the government is putting forward with their huge team, not so much.
The government's normally, Kathleen Wynne, and they've waited too long. They should have looked at patient-based care much sooner.
I would say some of it happened. It happened because people on the ground wanted it to happen, knew that that was the right thing to do, but it was difficult, and the rules did not allow them to do this easily. But you look in Elliott Lake, you look in Espanola, there are some places that have done this, and this should be encouraged to be repeated in many other communities of Algoma and of Sault Ste. Marie where it could work. But that's not what the government has in store. The government has in store to mandate hospital, long-term care home, and all of this to all be amalgamated under one big team, and giving the leadership of this to whoever has enough administrative abilities to do that. That's not patient-centered care. That's in a new administrative structure.
Just final question here before our next break. The timeline for all these healthcare changes, you're on the ground and you know more. If you want to shed some light on to our viewers, all these changes in Northern Ontario, what kind of a timeline are we looking at?
So for the dismantlement of the local health integration network, the Northeast, it's already done. Their board of directors has been kicked to the curb. They do not exist anymore. Ontario Health, I'm expecting it early July, will be in charge of hospital, long-term care, community mental health, home and community care, primary care, and hospice care. And that will happen, I'm guessing, in July.
Right.
And I'm also guessing that the first round of teams, remember those new Ontario teams, great big affair of 280, 300,000 people. The first one of those should be announced sometimes this summer also. We're expecting about 30 of them to be announced this summer, and it will start.
It's a reality, and it's happening fast and furious, is the bottom line.
Oh, absolutely. In
Great.
4 years' time, when this government term is done, you will not recognize our healthcare system. It will have completely changed.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
Franz, let's just take another quick break, and we'll be back with Franz Gelina, the MPP for Nickel Belt, after these commercial messages. Welcome back to Civic Affairs. I'm Andy Martins, and we're having a delightful chat with Franz Gelina, the MPP for Sudbury, or Nickel Belt, which is part of Sudbury, in the Sudbury area. And thanks for doing this. People are frustrated. They ask me every day, why does Northern Ontario have second-rate healthcare? And I can't think of anybody better than you to answer this question.
Well, I would say a number of things. When decisions are made at Queen's Park in Toronto, no matter how good the people down there are, the solutions they bring forward often makes no sense to us in Northern Ontario because of the distances, because of the diversity, because of the lack of services. Often the solutions that they bring forward for us don't work.
Right.
So that's one, that we need to be listened to. We need to be taken seriously when we say, here's how you design a healthcare system to fit our needs. But we've never really had that. We've always had very good intentioned people in Toronto making decisions for us, and we end up with what we have. Second is recruitment and retention. We have solutions that work. We have the Northern Ontario School of Medicine that have studied how do you recruit and retain a stable workforce and healthcare system in the North. We have a body of evidence that tells you how to do this, but nobody in Toronto is interested in looking at this. Nobody in Toronto is interested in finding solutions. So, and that was there when Mrs. Wynne was in power, and it has gotten even worse with Mr. Ford.
I'm going to ask you, has that been the case since you've been an MPP for almost 12 years? That's been a case no matter who's been in government.
For the Liberal, it was really hard to get them to focus on Northern Ontario, and with Mr. Ford, so far it has been impossible.
Right, right. Cannabis stores are kind of running late here in Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury as well. Is this really going to help or hurt the opioid problem that is plaguing Ontario, do you think?
I would say cannabis store comes with a whole impact on public health. At the time where our public health units are disappearing and going from 7 public health units down to 1. So it is a fallacy to think that 2 stores in Sudbury is going to do anything to help the people of Sault Ste. Marie. This is completely disconnected. I don't know who's pretending that this is going to help us, but it is not.
I agree with you. It's a fairy tale. 2 stores. The problem is greater, whether it's Sudbury or here in Sault Ste. Marie. The problem is greater than 2 stores can really help with this.
Oh, absolutely. And cannabis comes, it's a substance. Many of them smoke them, so it is not harmless. Can it be used in harm reductions for other type of drugs? Yes, it can. But those are for people who already have an addiction problem. But for many people who the drug is now legal,
Right.
they are buying it on the black market because that's all that's available in Northern Ontario, and being addicted to all sorts of problems. And cannabis is not, although it's a natural substance, it is not harmless. And
Right.
smoking it comes with health issues that the health unit is well positioned to help us with, but the health units are disappearing.
Right. Exactly. I wanted to talk a little bit about majority governments. I know you've been in, as an MPP for 12 years, and without a third party, you've seen the mockery that the government's made of the question period process. And Leader Andrea Horwath has been frustrated, and I'm sure all your colleagues at Queen's Park have been frustrated. Do you see any quick fix for this problem?
I would say it's called respect, and we should hold our politicians to account for respect. I mean, do I agree with what Mr. Ford policies? I'm with the NDP. Most of the time I don't, but it doesn't matter if I agree or disagree with his idea or policy. I can still be respectful to the person. The Conservative has taken it a step too far, where not only do they disagree with policies that are not their own, they also have no respect for the Legislative Assembly
Right.
as a whole, or the people that make up the MPP in the Legislative Assembly. And this lack of respect leads to nothing good. When, think about it. If you have your coworkers around you, when was the last time you scream insult at the top of your lungs to your coworkers?
Exactly.
You don't do this. You don't do this. Well, in my work, they do this every day. I have never screamed in the house and never will, but I can't say the same for all of the people that I work with.
Park has a proud history. The process has been there, whether you have two parties or three parties. You have a decorum and you follow the process, not like what I've seen in the last year. It's just, is a third party needed, do you think, at Queen's Park? How can we get out of this problem that we're seeing at Queen's Park right now?
I would say we have to call our politicians to account. We have to tell them what we expect. We expect them to be respectful. We expect them that when it's question period, which is part of our democracy, that they answer the questions.
Right.
And if they don't have the answer, then be upfront and be polite about it. There doesn't have to be questions where I ask about 911 and they answer about a buck of beer. What's the relationship here?
Right. Do you think the Speaker of the House could do more at Queen's Park, could do a little bit more in that area?
No, it has to be the parties. The party in power is the one that will set the tone and is the one that needs to come to the realizations that this is not a football game. This is not a match or whatever.
Right.
This is serious business for the people of Ontario. It has to be taken seriously enough to be respectful of the chamber, of the Legislative Assembly, of the protocol that comes with it, and of the people that work in it.
We have about a minute left. Madame Gelina, you told the Sudbury Star on May 14th, healthcare changes in Ontario are dangerous. Can you give us some quick comments about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you just look at the health units, when the ministers say they will focus on the priorities, which is vaccination and safe water, I agree with all of that. But there are many other things that the health unit does, such as the work they do with opioid and drug prevention,
right.
and the work they do in keeping us safe, the work they do in making sure that the built environment around us encourage us to quit smoking, to exercise more, to walk more. All of this are not priorities under this government, but they are to keep us, Northerner and all of Ontarians, healthy, and this is all being thrown to the side.
Wonderful. Our time has run out. I totally enjoyed this. Franz, thank you so much for taking time in your day to do this and giving our viewers insight. We'll have you on again as to the goings-on at Queen's Park. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
That's
nice talking to you.
Franz Gelina. She's the MPP for Nickel Belt, which is an area around Sudbury, part of Sudbury. And this is Civic Affairs. We'll see you next time. I'm Andy Martins. Thanks for watching.